As someone who believes in pure love, I found myself transmigrated into a scumbag romance novel. In the story, the male lead toys with 5 female leads, causing each of them to meet a tragic end. Now, having become the school bully in the novel, I proceed cautiously, helping the 5 female leads see the true nature of the scumbag. Although I completed my mission, I never expected that all of them would end up falling in love with me. On my first day in the novel, I arrived early at a secluded grove on the outskirts, because today is the day Shen Youngsin faces danger. Shen Youngsin is one of the 5 female leads. According to the timeline, at this point, she and the male lead are just somewhat close classmates. Always a good girl, she gradually becomes attracted to the thrill of breaking the rules under the scumbag male lead's influence. Today, she decides to skip class to watch a movie with him. To make it to their date on time, she takes a shortcut. She runs into some thugs, but is saved by the male lead. From then on, she develops feelings for him, taking the first step toward her downfall and gradually losing herself. I chuckle to myself knowing the original plot is my greatest cheat. As long as I get ahead of the male lead and ruin his sinister plans at every turn, the female leads will never fall into misery. The smile on my face grew even wider as I dashed toward the alley ahead. At that moment, a few shady-looking punks in the alley were cracking their knuckles and slowly approaching. Dressed like that and still taking a shortcut, they sneered. Did she dress like this just to seduce us? The girl blocked by these thugs was none other than Shen Youngsin. She bit her red lips tightly, her legs clad in white tights rubbing together nervously out of fear. The lead thug eyed her greedily, licking his lips, already impatient for the good things that were about to happen. Meanwhile, 2 other thugs standing relaxed at the entrance of the alley were grumbling to each other about not getting any benefits. Just then, Wei Ran walked over. As he was considering how to speak up, the 2 thugs suddenly jumped to their feet, their expressions even stuttering in shock. Brother Dao Dao, so this extra character, the original me, actually had such a nickname. Well, things will be easier if you guys know me. Move aside, I have something to say. I shoved the 2 of them aside and strode quickly inward. Soon, I saw a crowd gathered ahead. Shen Youngsin had fallen to the ground, looking up in terror at the lead thug. I remembered that in the comic, when the original character arrived, Shen Youngsin hadn't lost her virginity yet, but her coat had already been torn off clearly. The trauma she suffered was significant. The group of thugs suddenly turned around, their eyes hostile, but when they saw who had arrived, their expressions changed. Everyone's expression twisted, as if they just swallowed a dead rat. Brother Dad, why is he here? All the people present were thugs and hoodlums, but anyone who hung around Wei Young the one high school or the old city district knew the name Fang Yuan. This was the guy who dared to wield a knife and attack people as soon as he started middle school, a real menace. The lead thug, Brother Dao, looked grim, but still forced a flattering smile. He'd almost gotten his hands on the pretty girl, and now this great opportunity was cut short and couldn't be more frustrated. Who are you calling brother? Get lost! I slapped the wall beside me, my gaze sweeping over the group with a wolf-like ferocity. The lead thug shrank his neck, not daring to show the slightest hint of dissatisfaction, and left with a wail, very naturally taking his lackeys with him. After all these thugs had left, I finally got a direct sense of just how stunning Shen Youngsin's looks were. Her fair, delicate skin, those clear, star-like eyes, and lips slightly parted in surprise. So beautiful, it almost made my heart skip a beat. For some reason, a wicked fire suddenly flared up inside me. This girl was born with a natural allure. I cursed inwardly. No wonder Li Junyang couldn't bear to let Shen Youngsin go. Then I shook my head, repenting for the evil thoughts that had just arisen. I was a warrior of pure love. I absolutely couldn't waver. Thank you, Fang Yuan. Shen Youngsin's expression was complicated. Like me, she was also a student at Weiyang No. 1 High School, and my reputation was not unfamiliar to her. Still, she never would have imagined that the notorious troublemaker would appear today like a celestial being and save her. However, I merely glanced at her indifferently, turned around, and left. Seeing that I didn't even bother to greet her, Shen Youngsin was left a bit bewildered. What a strange person, she murmured softly, her melodious voice lingering in the alley. As I walked out of the alley, I stretched lazily in the sunlight, feeling completely at ease. Since I already knew how the story would unfold, there was no way I'd give Li Junyang any more chances to score points with the heroine. But this time, since I rescued Shen Youngsin ahead of time, Li Junyang probably hasn't arrived yet. I glanced around and muttered to myself. After all, the male lead is the male lead. The author gave him plenty of special treatment. For example, he's a top student at Weiyang No. 1 High School, an academic ace, and his physical abilities are outstanding too. He's the president of the Taekwondo club, and his skills are said to have reached 4th degree black belt. For him, playing the hero and beating up a few street thugs is just too easy. But Li Junyang would never have imagined that someone would beat him to the punch. If I don't head back to school now, I'll be late. Suddenly, a gentle voice sounded quietly behind me. Immersed in my own thoughts, I was startled and turned around, only to see Shen Youngsin, who I thought I had already parted ways with, standing right there. Why are you here? I asked. Of course, I'm heading back to school, Shen Youngsin replied, pointing at the street sign in front of us. It dawned on me this really was the shortest route to school. After something like that, how could I possibly have the mood to wander around outside? Shen Youngsin sighed softly. His eyes were dim with gloom. Although he had escaped danger, the fright still lingered. After making up a random excuse, he sent Li Junyang a text to cancel their date, then hurried after me in the direction I'd left. Even Shen Youngsin herself probably couldn't explain why she was willing to walk with Fang Yuan. Shen Youngsin looked up at me, her eyes glistening with tears, her expression pitiful like a frightened little rabbit, afraid I might refuse her. Alright then, I sighed helplessly. The heroine was so scared. If I just left her alone and something else happened, it would hardly be worth it. Seeing that I didn't refuse, Shen Youngsin let out a genuine sigh of relief, her eyes smiling as she nodded emphatically. On the way back to school, neither of them spoke a word. Shen Youngsin walked beside me, occasionally sneaking a glance at me, but afraid I'd notice, she quickly looked away. Her cheeks were flushed, and she wondered to herself if her previous impressions of him had been too stereotypical. Thinking about it carefully, Fang Yuan's fierce reputation was just a rumor. Could it be that he was actually a good person with a strong sense of justice? Of course, I had no idea what Shen Youngsin was thinking. With my hands behind my head, I glanced at the girl beside me. Fang Yuan is sneaking looks at me. What does he want? How come I never noticed before? Now that I'm up close, he's actually pretty handsome. He's also brave and gives off a sense of security. You can go in by yourself now, I have something else to do. My words snapped Shen Youngsin out of her wandering thoughts. She looked up and realized that, without noticing, they had already arrived at the school gate. You're not going to class? Shen Youngsin asked in surprise. No. I waved my hand, glanced at the school gate, and gave a meaningful smile before turning to leave. If you run into trouble again, you can come to me for help, but that's not a long-term solution. I suggest you learn to rely more on yourself, and it's best to stay away from him. At that moment, a seed was planted in the heroine's heart, the idea that she must rely on herself for everything. When that seed sprouts in the future, a passionate love is only a matter of time. Realizing that there was something meaningful in my words, Shen Youngsin felt a stir in her heart. She looked up and saw Li Junyang standing at the school gate, gazing at her in a daze. There's nothing between me and Li Zuyang, don't get the wrong idea. Shen Youngsin suddenly turned around, but my figure was already gone. Her outstretched hand froze in midair, and even she couldn't explain why she cared so much about his feelings. Did something happen? I waited for you at the cinema for ages and didn't see you. While Shen Yangsen was still lost in thought, Li Junyang had already walked up to her, looking warily in the direction I had left, muttering, "Why was that punk with you? Was it because of him?" His eyes were full of concern. His expression gently was the very picture of a classic Japanese shoujo male lead, at least in the past. What Shen Yangsen liked most was this gentleness. "No, I just suddenly feel a bit tired." Shen Yangsen shook her head, a hint of disappointment in her eyes. She realized she no longer felt like chatting with Li Junyang. Instead, she just felt an emptiness inside. "I'm going back to the classroom first. Wait for me." Li Junyang frowned, glanced at him again, let out a long sigh, and cursed inwardly. Why did that guy suddenly show up there? Such a busybody. But there was no time to dwell on it. Li Junyang hurriedly chased after Shen Yangsen in the direction she had left, truly living up to his reputation as the hypocrite who never revealed his true colors, even by the end of the manga. He really puts on a good act. If I were to stand next to him, everyone would probably think I'm the real villain. I narrowed my eyes and tilted my head to look at Li Junyang, who was chasing after Shen Yangsen, and suddenly let out a sneer. This was my first time meeting the male lead, and sure enough, he was just as described in the manga. But everything is only just beginning. It's the first day since I entered the story. Ever since I saved Shen Yanshin this morning, the persistent male lead arranged for a few delinquent girls to corner Shen Yanshin in an alley outside the school, planning to stage a hero saving the damsel scene. Someone who knows the original plot. Naturally, I have to get ahead of everything and ruin the male lead's nasty plan before he can act. At this moment, in the alley, several delinquent girls with brightly colored hair were shoving a girl, pushing her into a corner. "You still say you didn't seduce my man? I've already heard all about it, brother who came looking for you today. So what exactly did you do?" The girl with purple hair stood with her hands on her hips, looking fierce and aggressive. "If you don't make things clear today, I'll go to Weiyang No One High and shout it out for everyone to hear. Let them know that their so-called pure goddess is actually all." Shen Yangsin, who had been pushed to the ground, had tears welling up in her beautiful eyes. Although she was scared, her expression remained stubborn. I didn't do that. I really didn't." "Oh, I've got all the evidence, and you're still pretending to be innocent?" The delinquent girl sneered, grabbing Shen Yangsin's hair and turning to shout at the nearby vendors. "Everyone, come take a look. This woman pretends to be all pure and innocent, but behind the scenes she's seducing my boyfriend." As soon as she said this, the attention of the surrounding vendors was instantly drawn, and their expressions turned amused and gossipy. Shen Yangsin's face grew even paler. Her hands clenched unconsciously as she shook her head, tears streaming down as she tried to defend herself. I didn't do anything wrong. She was desperate after all, and the one who had tried to do that to her was Brother Hugh. She was completely innocent. So why was the other party turning the tables and accusing her? The delinquent girl sneered coldly. "You better confess honestly and then get on your knees and apologize to me. Otherwise, I'll strip you naked, record a video, and post it online. I want everyone to see what happens to a homewrecker." Shen Yangsin's face turned even paler. She closed her eyes, braced herself, and shouted, "I'm the real victim here. How can someone be so shameless?" Fine, you're still being stubborn." The delinquent girl let out an exasperated laugh. Shen Yangsin's attitude had already made her lose face in front of her friends, and she was out of patience. "Aren't you just relying on that pretty face of yours to seduce men? I'll ruin it right now. I want to see how you'll keep talking back to me once you've lost your looks." The delinquent girl reached out to grab Shen Yangsin. Her nails were long and sharp, studded with fake gems, and if she managed to get a good grip, she'd definitely leave several bloody scratches on Shen Yangsin's face. Shen Yangsin's expression changed. She braced her arms against the ground, trying to back away, but the girl next to her was quick and pressed down hard on her shoulder. Shen Yangsin couldn't move at all, pinned down, and she closed her eyes in despair. In that moment, the person she wanted most wasn't Li Junyang, or rather, Shen Yangsin had never really expected Li Junyang to come save her. Instead, an image of someone with yellow sideswept fangs appeared in her mind. If only Fang Yuan were here right now. "I think that's enough, don't you? Your all-girl show, could you be so vicious?" Shen Yangsin's eyes flew open, and she turned toward the voice. She saw a blonde-haired guy, hands in his pockets, strolling over with a lazy grin. It was him. It really was him. Shen Yangsin pressed her lips together, a rush of bitterness, spiciness, sourness, and sweetness flooding her heart all at once, the complex emotions overwhelming her so much that she couldn't say a single word. Everything before her eyes felt dizzy and unreal. The moment I appeared, the delinquent girl's hand froze in midair. She couldn't decide whether to grab or not, and her hand just hung there awkwardly. The other girls with Brother Dao weren't as embarrassed as she was. They greeted me properly. Out of fear of Fang Yuan, they all immediately let go of Shen Yangsin at the same time. Freezing my grip, Shen Yangsin quickly retreated, then stood up from the ground and hurried behind me. Her movements were smooth and practiced, as if she'd rehearsed this scene countless times in her mind, all because Li Hu had come. I glanced back at her, then withdrew my gaze and looked sideways at the purple-haired delinquent girl, asking, "Brother Dao, this has nothing to do with you. Give me some face, for Brother Hu's sake." The purple-haired girl forced herself to bring up Brother Hu's name, trying to sound imposing, but suddenly everything went black before her eyes, and a sharp pain shot across her face. With a crisp smack, I slapped her hard across the face. The force of the blow left her dizzy, and she collapsed to the ground, clutching her face. I stood in front of her, looking down coldly, and asked, "Give face to whom?" "You dare hit me? You actually dare hit me?" The purple-haired delinquent girl felt dizzy, her mind filled with disbelief. "Brother Hu, I'm Brother Hu's girlfriend," she cried. I couldn't be bothered to listen to her whining, so I raised my hand and slapped her again. "Who do you want me to give face to?" I asked once more. This time the girl was truly scared. She tasted blood in her mouth and pushed at her teeth with her tongue. Some of them were already loose. She didn't dare say another word, because it was obvious I wasn't afraid of Brother Hu at all. But even though she stayed silent, I still had no intention of letting her off. "Why aren't you talking? Weren't you pretty talkative just now? Who do you want me to give face to? Who's worthy of me giving them face?" My tone wasn't fierce at all. Instead, it was completely indifferent. But it was precisely this cold indifference that made everyone watching feel a chill in their hearts. Shen Yangsin was holding her face as she witnessed everything, her beautiful eyes unconsciously turning starry. "This man is so handsome." The crisp sound of slaps rang out mercilessly, landing on the delinquent girl's face again and again. This girl, who used to be an arrogant tyrant in the old city, now looked like a helpless little chick, letting me slap her as I pleased. The purple-haired delinquent was so dazed from the blows that she staggered backward, her disheveled appearance showing no trace of her earlier arrogance. The fear in her companion's eyes was now mixed with a sudden realization. Although they had long heard that Brother Dao was not someone to mess with, today they finally understood why. Someone who even hits women, how could he be easy to deal with? When I got tired of hitting her, I let her go and stood there with my arms crossed. "If you're not convinced, feel free to come at me, or bring Li Hu if you want. Now get lost." No matter what everyone else was thinking, I just felt a bit bored at that moment. All those so-called Daogei and Hyujie types in the original story were just background characters, barely even appearing a few times, maybe just at the beginning. We're all just small fry, yet some people just don't know their place and insist on provoking the female lead. Isn't it only natural they get beaten up? Don't think that today's incident is over just like that. Fang Yuan, the purple-haired delinquent girl, was being helped away by her girlfriends, gritting her teeth. Even though it was her face that got slapped, her leg was now a bit lame, and her glare was fierce enough to eat someone alive. She's Tiger Bro's girlfriend, and the two of them are gangsters in the same crew, usually minding their own business and never crossing paths with Brother Dao. Who knows what got into Fang Feng Yuan today, she ended up slapping both of their faces. If they just let this go, how could they keep their reputation in the old city, or in Weiyang? I stretched lazily. The look in that delinquent girl's eyes as she left was all too familiar to me. Maybe because. It was probably because I had already absorbed most of the original memories. As a fellow delinquent, I could instantly recognize that look. It was the kind of look that meant things would never just end peacefully between us. I had a feeling that life at school was about to get a lot more troublesome. But I wasn't afraid of these people, whether it was Li Hu or the purple-haired delinquent girl. They were just minor characters, nothing more. I turned to look at Shen Yangxin, and when I saw her condition clearly, the words of comfort I'd meant to say got stuck in my throat. Even though I'd arrived in time, Shen Yangxin still looked pretty miserable right now. Her school uniform jacket was torn to shreds, and her pants were covered in stains. If she hadn't been wearing a t-shirt underneath, which kept her from being completely exposed, she probably would have broken down already. Her big eyes blinked, and in one corner, a few sparkling tears still clung to her stunningly beautiful face, making her look heartbreakingly pitiful. Given all this, wouldn't it be a bit insensitive for me to ask if she was okay? I thought for a moment, sighed, and said, "Wait here for me a bit, don't go anywhere." Shen Yangxin blinked and nodded obediently. Then, I turned and quickly walked toward the nearby night market. Shen Yangxin didn't know what I was going to do, but standing next to this blonde-haired guy that everyone else was afraid of, she actually felt a rare sense of security. This was the second time now Shen Yangxin clutched the hem of her clothes. In just one day, her impression of Feng Yuan had completely transformed, as if making a triple jump. Not long ago, Feng Yuan was still that delinquent she would run away from at first sight, but unexpectedly, he had saved her twice in a single day. The feeling was truly strange. I didn't go far, just ducked into a random clothing store in the night market. I bought an oversized jacket and came back. Since Shen Yangxin's jacket had already been torn to shreds, if he went back like that, who knows what kind of looks passersby would give him. Even putting aside that aspect, it would probably be hard to explain to his family. "Put this on," I said, handing the jacket over and scratching my face. "No need to return it, just take it." How could I? Shen Yangxin changed into the new jacket. Since the school uniform jacket was so badly torn, there was no point in mending it, so he simply tossed it into a nearby trash can. When he heard what I said, his beautiful eyes immediately widened.
"You've already helped me several times. I really should thank you properly. I can't just take advantage of you. After I get home, I'll wash the jacket and then, are you free this weekend? I'd like to treat you to a meal and return the jacket to you." As she spoke, Shen Yangxin's delicate profile quietly flushed red. Even she hadn't expected herself to say the latter half of that sentence. She simply couldn't control it, and ended up extending the invitation just like that.
She probably won't end up learning from me, right? Shen Yangxin's palms were slightly sweaty. She was confident in her own charm, but after all, this was her first time inviting a boy out, and with no experience, she instinctively became nervous. Let's forget about having a meal together. The words I uttered in silence made Shen Yangxin's heart instantly sink to the bottom. "If you insist on returning the jacket, just bring it to me during class. It won't be any trouble." I waved my hand and turned to leave. I hadn't forgotten what my task was if I wanted to help the heroine become independent and emotionally resilient. Then I had to make sure they learned to stand on their own, able to survive without relying on anyone else. "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" Shen Yangxin stood there in a daze, still not recovered from the moment. But when she saw that I really intended to leave, she blurted out instinctively, "If possible, if you encounter something like this again in the future, I hope you can learn to handle it on your own." That's all. I turned and left, walking away with an air of nonchalance. Shen Yangxin really is very beautiful, truly worthy of her title as the school beauty. This I don't deny. I'm not the type to pretend to be above it all. If there's a chance to get along with a beautiful girl, there's no need to deliberately refuse. But Shen Yangxin's situation is different. She actually has a true destined partner. I've read the original novel, so I know very clearly that before Shen Yangxin was taken advantage of by Li Junyang, she had a childhood friend with whom she shared a good relationship. This person is Shen Yangxin's real match. She's suitable for her in every way, upright, emotionally stable, and ambitious. You could say that if it weren't for Li Junyang forcibly intervening and using underhanded tricks to deceive Shen Yangxin, this childhood friend would have been her true official partner. I know very well that I'm just a passerby. My role is to help the female leads see the true nature of the scumbag, and after they become disillusioned with love, I'll return to reality myself. I can't take anyone or anything from here with me. Since that's the case, why create unnecessary complications? After all, each of the 5 female leads in this comic is a pitiful person. I pillow my head on my arms, stroll along, and leisurely head home. After I left, Shen Yangxin still hadn't snapped out of her daze. She stood there blankly, clutching the jacket I'd given her tightly, relying on herself. Shen Yangxin murmured, her expression full of confusion. She had always been confident in her own charm, but today she suffered a setback. Even Shen Yangxin herself couldn't quite explain why she felt differently about the other person. But the sting of rejection was all too real. He then wrapped the jacket tightly around himself and walked in the direction of home, though his steps were noticeably heavier. Lost in thought, Shen Yangxin didn't notice that not far behind him, at a corner, a face twisted with anger suddenly appeared out of the darkness. "It's that guy again. How is it for the second time? Feng Yuan, you're just a little punk. Do you really think I wouldn't dare to deal with you? You ruined my plans twice now. I'll remember this score."
As a transmigrator, Feng Yuan used his knowledge of the plot to his advantage. Not only did he save the female lead, Shen Yangxin, from thugs twice, but he also planted a seed of independence in her heart. However, Feng Yuan hadn't anticipated that the female lead's feelings for him would become uncontrollable. Meanwhile, on the other side, the male lead, whose plans had been repeatedly thwarted, now harbored an intense hatred for Feng Yuan, and a sinister plan for revenge was brewing.
A secret feeling quietly began to grow. At this moment, outside the window of Class 7, Grade 12 at Weiyang No, 1 high school, Shen Yangxin was peeking in with her hands behind her back, as if searching for someone. Why would the school beauty come to a place like ours today? Shen Yangxin is usually pretty distant from our class, so who did she come all this way to find? Someone voiced their curiosity. Faced with Wei Yang's acknowledged goddess, none of these students dared to approach Shen Yangxin. Even a casual glance from her would make their hearts race and faces flush. She stood at the back window of the classroom, peering inside with her little head, clutching her jacket behind her back for a long time, but in the end, she still couldn't find that familiar figure. He's not coming to class again today? Seriously, we're already in our final year of high school, how can he still be so careless? Shen Yangxin shook her head, unable to find Feng Yuan. There was nothing more she could do. After glancing around, she turned and left. Having always been the center of attention at school, Shen Yangxin was naturally used to the stares around her. She could have easily handed the jacket to one of Fang Yuan's classmates and asked them to pass it on to him, but for some reason Shen Yangxin didn't want to do that. If she let them deliver it, wouldn't she lose her excuse to see Fang Yuan? As Shen Yangxin thought about it, a subtle feeling began to grow in his heart he himself hadn't even noticed yet. Like wild grass, it had just begun to sprout, but was already spreading unchecked deep inside him. It's fine, if I don't see him today, there's always tomorrow. Fang Yuan can't possibly skip class forever, right? With this thought, Shen Yangxin's steps became noticeably lighter. Just as he was about to go downstairs, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. What are you doing in class 7? Are you here to see that delinquent? Shen Yangxin turned around and saw Li Junyang walking out from around the corner frowning. His expression was somewhat secretive. Yeah, so what? Shen Yangxin's delicate brows furrowed slightly. Li Junyang's interrogative tone was making him uncomfortable. After all, there wasn't really anything between them, they were just a bit closer than other classmates, that's all. Why did he have to question him like he was a criminal? Shen Yangxin felt he didn't owe the other anything. You weren't actually in a bad mood yesterday. You just wanted to get rid of me so you could go to school with that delinquent, right? Li Junyang felt his temples throbbing, and a few veins stood out on his forehead from anger. Why do you keep calling him a delinquent? Fang Yuan isn't like that. Shen Yangxin's delicate brows furrowed slightly. Li Junyang kept calling him a delinquent over and over, and Shen Yangxin could sense the contempt in his words toward Fang Yuan. But Fang Yuan clearly wasn't that kind of person. Shen Yangxin had only recently discovered the righteous heart hidden beneath Fang Yuan's rough exterior. Maybe someone like that isn't exactly a good person, but he's definitely not a delinquent. He's not like you. Why don't you go ask around the whole school who doesn't know about you? Li Junyang's expression turned cold. Even at a time like this, Shen Yangxin was still defending Fang Yuan. A powerful sense of corrosion gnawed at his heart. He reached out, wanting to grab Shen Yangxin's wrist, but as soon as his hand extended, it froze in midair, and the words he hadn't finished saying got stuck in his throat. Shen Yangxin just stared at him in shock, her eyes full of disbelief. Only then did Li Junyang realize that he had lost control of his expression earlier, and even his tone had sounded almost furious. The prey wasn't even in his grasp yet though, could he have been so careless? You were really scary just now. Shen Yangxin shook her head and stepped back. I don't know what Fang Yuan did to offend you, but he really is a good person. He's helped me so many times. Li Junyang, I used to think you could be a good friend, but for now, you should calm down first, be careful, let me explain. Li Junyang tried hard to force out a gentle smile like he usually did, but Shen Yangxin was clearly frightened by him. She lowered her head and hurried away, clutching an oversized jacket tightly in her hand. Shen Yangxin walked so quickly that by the time Li Junyang snapped out of it, her figure had already disappeared. A surge of anger instantly welled up inside him, the intense emotion corroding his heart. In his fury, he punched the wall. There was a dull thud as his fist hit the wall. That jacket was immense style. Could it be that last night? Li Junyang's eyes flickered. Already consumed by jealousy, he was in no state to calm down. Li Junyang stood there for quite a while, only snapping out of it when the class bell rang. He turned and walked down the stairs. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. Fang Yuan, that opportunistic bastard, had to pay the price today. He had to. Time slipped by, and soon it was afternoon, then dusk. In a deserted alley, Li Junyang crouched on the ground with a sullen face, gripping his phone. On the screen was his chat with Shen Yangxin. The chat was a sea of green, only his own messages, with barely any replies from Shen Yangxin. Li Junyang let out a slow breath, clenching his hands so tightly that he nearly crushed his phone. He had already explained himself to Shen Yangxin countless times about his outburst that morning, and promised it would never happen again. But Shen Yangxin's response, "We're just friends, you don't need to explain so much to me," completely shattered his composure. Li Junyang could feel the distance between him and Shen Yangxin growing wider and wider, and that distance was gradually turning into a real barrier. He couldn't control this growing distance, and his heart was filled with frustration. He was so close, just one step away from getting what he wanted. Why? Why did that bastard suddenly show up? If it weren't for him, Shen Yangxin would have already been stripped bare by me, lying on the bed for me to do whatever I pleased. Why? Why on earth? Li Junyang suddenly stood up, slamming his palm against the wall behind him and roaring in anger. Li Hu had already been prepared. Yang Ge, a sinister voice sounded. Li Junyang looked over with a dark expression, only to see that at some point, the place in front of him had filled with people. Fists were clenched tightly everywhere, and every face wore a menacing grin. These people had their hair dyed in all sorts of bright colors, their eyes gloomy and cold, each one the type that ordinary students would avoid at all costs. Li Hu stood at the very front, and beside him was a delinquent girl with purple hair, clinging to his arm, her expression equally indignant. I'm telling you, Young Jae, that Feng Yuan doesn't show us any respect at all. We should have dealt with him a long time ago. Didn't you see how arrogant that kid was yesterday? The purple-haired delinquent girl said angrily, a trace of malice flashing in her eyes. She had only brought her sisters to confront Shen Yangxin and put on an act because she was following Li Junyang's orders, so that he could play the hero and save the damsel in distress. But she hadn't expected to run into someone as reckless as Feng Yuan. Strictly speaking, compared to Feng Yuan, who had slapped him in the face last night, he was actually more afraid of Li Junyang. Being the so-called king of the old city district was just petty stuff, but Li Junyang wasn't he acquainted with the real underground emperor of the Zhang family, and how were his fighting skills? Li Junyang glanced over, his expression unchanged, while Li Hu's face flickered with uncertainty. Clearly, even bringing up this matter left him a bit shaken. That kid had been completely unknown before. No one had ever heard of him. Later, after he started middle school, one day while passing through the old city district, he was mugged by a gang of thugs. At first, Feng Yuan didn't resist at all. He obediently handed over his money and left. The gang, having gotten a taste of easy money, decided to try their luck again the next day, betting that Feng Yuan would pay up once more. From then on, it became a habit. Whenever they needed cash, they'd go to Feng Yuan, who basically became their steady source of income. Until that day, Li Hu exhaled a heavy cloud of smoke, as if trying to spit out his frustration along with it. That day, Li Junyang's interest was piqued. According to Li Hu's account, Feng Yuan didn't seem like a delinquent at first. Seeing the lingering fear on Li Hu's face, Li Junyang began to suspect that something significant must have happened that day. That's how the current ninth brother of the old city district came to be. Even after so many years, Li Hu still feels a chill when he talks about it. Feng Yuan, having been robbed and harassed repeatedly, finally had enough. On that day, he brought a short knife with him supposedly bought online and just put it in his bag. Neither the security guard nor the teachers noticed, so he carried the knife with him through an entire day of classes. After school, he walked out the gate and went straight to find that gang of thugs. And then, Li Junyang felt a tickle in his throat. The more he listened, the itchier his throat became, and his heart started pounding uncontrollably. No one really knows what happened in that alley. What exactly happened in there? It was an afternoon, close to evening, and the commotion with huge panic screams could be heard from several streets away. The alley was covered in blood. It caused quite a stir. Later, the police arrived and issued a statement. Because of this, Fang Yuan was sent to juvenile detention for a week. Fang Yuan, all by himself, slashed 8 people. No one died, but every one of those thugs was injured. The one with the mildest wounds still had to stay in the hospital for over a month. Li Hu took a drag from his cigarette and said, People like us, even though we act all tough and rowdy on the surface, when it comes down to it, we're just a bunch of kids. Sure, everyone here dares to get into a fight, but when it comes to actually slashing someone, at least I wouldn't dare, but Fang Yuan would. His family seemed to be quite wealthy, and paid a lot in compensation. It's said that because of this incident, Fang Yuan's parents abandoned him. No one really knows where he went, but from that point on, Fang Yuan lived alone. Whenever the school held parent-teacher meetings, he would come by himself. He must have had a falling out with his family. Li Junyang rubbed his brow. For ordinary people, what happened to Fang Yuan would be terrifying, but he wasn't afraid. He glanced at a certain someone, his eyes flickering with an inexplicable light. Li Hu let out a strange laugh. I used to be scared, I guess, but after all, I never had any real grudge against Fang Yuan. There were some conflicts, but they were all minor, so I just let them go. But now it's different. He's not giving me any respect, nor my girlfriend. Li Yangzi has always kept herself clean. And besides, with Brother Yang here, what can he possibly do? Not to mention the underground king backing Li Junyang. Even Li Junyang himself is a real expert. He's a 4th degree black belt and once broke an opponent's leg with a single kick in a competition. With skills like that, he's way better than someone who only knows how to use a knife. As long as you're not afraid, it's fine. Li Junyang nodded in satisfaction. He was indeed surprised that Fang Yuan had done those things, but that was all after all. He was just a low-level thug. Brother Hugh, I found that kid Fang Yuan. He's at the internet cafe next door. At this moment, one of the guys in charge of tailing hurried over, his face full of excitement. Very good. It's time for you all to make a move. Li Junyang's eyes turned cold as he said icily. My family keeps a close watch on me, so I can't get involved in this kind of street business. But don't worry, I'll pay you every cent I promised. And if anything happens, no matter if it's with the law or the underworld, I'll take care of it for you. Did you all hear me clearly? Li Hu grinned. Don't worry, Brother Yang. No matter how tough Fang Yuan is today, even if he were Ultraman, he'd still have to take a couple of slaps from me. Li Hu sneered, his expression full of malice. For gangsters, nothing matters more than saving face. Fang Yuan's actions had undoubtedly caused Li Hu to lose all his authority in the old city. In the past, he might have hesitated, but now, with Li Junyang backing him, Li Hu instantly cast aside all his concerns about Fang Yuan. Very good. I have only one request. Since we decided to do this, I don't mind making things even bigger. Li Junyang took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, his eyes growing colder as he spoke. I want one of his legs. Doesn't Fang Yuan like causing trouble for himself? Well then, I want to see how much trouble he can stir up after I break one of his legs. What's more, Li Junyang's eyes flickered. No problem. Li Hu agreed without hesitation. He exchanged a glance with the purple-haired delinquent girl, then led his crew in a grand procession toward their target location. He also wanted to pull off a sensational move like Fang Yuan to boost his own status in the old city. He intended to use his notorious brother Dao as a stepping stone to become the sole overlord of the old city. Li Junyang crossed his arms, watching the group's figures recede into the distance. His gaze flickered with shifting emotions, lost in thought for a long while. Li Junyang took out his phone and stared at a number saved under the note. Yanba is an extraordinary person. Unlike Li Hu's petty schemes, Yanba was the real deal, a genuine figure in the underworld. Everyone in the circle knew that the only true underground emperor in the whole city was Yanba. If it weren't for his father's business booming and gradually giving him access to circles he could never have reached before, Li Junyang would never have gotten this person's contact information. When it came to such a big shot, Li Junyang didn't dare be careless in the slightest. But in order to completely crush Fang Yuan and prevent him from ever disrupting his plans again, and also to establish a connection with Yanba, Li Junyang was willing to risk it all. Brother Yanba had just returned to the country recently. It just so happened that his father's business had some dealings with him, which was how he got the chance to make contact. If I can get him to be my backer, who in the Jiang family could possibly stand in my way in the future? Li Junyang took a deep breath, steeling himself as he dialed the number. The call went unanswered for a while, but Li Junyang didn't dare get impatient and waited patiently. Finally, with a click, a raspy voice that sounded like it had just woken up came from the other end. Hello Yanba, Brother Yanba. Hello, I'm Li Qingshan's son. I was wondering if you're free tonight. I heard you've returned to the country, and I'd like to invite you to dinner. Li Junyang's face lit up with delight. He spoke respectfully. The sky was dusky as I stretched and walked out of the internet cafe. Sure enough, playing alone just isn't any fun. It's a pity that the original owner's friends all seem too scared to skip class like I do, so there's no one to hang out with. Really boring. Maybe I should just go back to class tomorrow. Suddenly, my phone rang in my pocket. The caller was someone named Xiao Ning. I tilted my head and thought for a while before recalling from my memory that this person's real name was probably Ning Xuan. He was one of that irresponsible old man's underlings, and back when I was still in the country, he was the one in charge of handling some shady business. He was very capable at his job and treated me with great respect. It seemed he hadn't changed his view of me just because my father was disappointed in me. I recall he went abroad recently to look for my father, and if I do the math, today should be the day he returns. Why is he calling at this time? Could it be that heartless old man is finally planning to increase my living allowance? Muttering to myself, I answered the call. Ning Xiaoyuan sounded very excited, and on the other end of the line came a rough voice brimming with barely contained joy. Is there any young master worse off than me? So, why are you calling me? Imitating Yuan Shen's attitude toward Ning Xiaoyuan from memory, I asked lazily, is that trying to cause me trouble again? Oh, young master, how long ago was that? Can't you just let it go? Ning Xiaoyuan laughed awkwardly, not daring to respond directly to my words. After all, no matter how strained my relationship with the old man is, we're still father and son. Someone like him, a subordinate, would never dare to butt in. Alright, I don't care to hear about his hardships. All I know is that I'm about to starve to death. I rolled my eyes and said irritably, you still haven't told me why are you calling? Here's the thing, young master. I got some news from meeting with the old man this time that you might be interested in. Are you free tonight? There happens to be a dinner, and we could talk face to face. Tonight, I'm not free tonight. I have things to do, and besides, I don't want to know anything about that. Who's inviting you to dinner? Didn't you just get back? I thought about it. According to the plot of the comic, one of the female leads is going to run into some trouble tonight. I have to get there before Li Junyang does. I can't give that scumbag even the slightest chance to score points. That would be such a waste. Seeing me refuse, Ning Jaewon looked disappointed, realizing he definitely wouldn't get to see the young master he'd been thinking about today. But then he thought, since he was already back, now that he was in the same place as the young master, how could there be fewer chances to meet in the future? Thinking of this, Ning Jaewon immediately perked up again and said with a smile, it's like this: the son of a small business owner wants to come to me to build connections and curry favor. Just as the old man has gone abroad, the businesses he left behind need to be managed. Although this company is small, it recently made a windfall, which happens to be useful. What does this small business do? Real estate. Young master, let me tell you, when these nouveau rich types jump straight into real estate, 8 or 9 times out of 10, they're doomed to fail. They can't handle all the different zombie factions, so they have no choice but to come to me for protection. Otherwise, they can forget about doing business in the future. Ning Jaewon shamelessly grinned and said, that's right, you've really made it big. I heard you have some kind of nickname in the Jiang family, something like the Underground Emperor. Isn't that right? I exhaled a puff of smoke, shook my head, and clicked my tongue. So impressive, huh? Smoke? I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Oh, young master, please don't tease me. That's just a nickname friends in the business gave me out of flattery. How could I ever call myself an emperor in front of you? Ning Jaewon was almost scared out of his wits, thinking to himself, why does the young master seem like a completely different person today? He's coming at me so hard right from the start. Could it be that I've been too too high profile lately and made the young master unhappy? That won't do. A warning bell rang in Ning Jaewon's hearth. Better keep a low profile from now on. He definitely didn't dare betray Fang. Besides, he never even considered betraying me. He absolutely couldn't let the young master suspect his loyalty. Alright, I was just messing with you, I said, not wanting to keep bantering with him. Let's chat tomorrow. I'll come find you tomorrow morning. I'm actually curious to hear what that is planning to make this time. Alright, young master, no problem. I'll be waiting for you, young master. Ning Jaewon was overjoyed and quickly agreed. He had thought the young master didn't want to see him, but it turned out there was just something going on today. That was a relief. Alright, we'll talk tomorrow if anything comes up. I hung up the phone, put it away, and turned to walk toward the supermarket. If the female lead doesn't prepare in advance for the problems she'll face tonight, she really won't be able to solve them. Just as I was about to turn and head to the supermarket, I suddenly caught a glimpse of a sneaky figure out of the corner of my eye. Pretending to look back casually, I noticed that, at some point, a group of young men with unfriendly expressions had gathered behind meal familiar faces. I smiled faintly. Even though I only glanced at them, I recognized quite a few of their faces. I knew these people. I'd run into them in the alley the first time I saved Shen Yang-sin. So Li Hu's men are this impatient, huh? Trying to get back at me. I kept a blank expression and ignored them completely. However, I quietly changed my route, turning to the left. There were fewer people over there. It was an abandoned construction site, perfect for a fight. Coincidentally, Fang Yuan wanted to test whether, along with inheriting the original body's memories, the physical training had also been passed down. Judging by the special training from the original body's master, I should now be a pretty formidable expert. As I strolled along, my hands behind my back quietly clenched into fists, feeling the steady surge of brute strength in my palms, and the smile on my face grew even wider. This group of fools, the original body, only refrained from fighting in front of ordinary people because of the master's orders. The only time that rule was broken, it was only because the original body was truly fed up and had no other choice that he fought back, and even then, he used a knife as a cover. That's why I say, people who end up as thugs really aren't the brightest. Did they ever stop to think, if the original body really had no skill and only earned the nickname Knife Brother because he used a blade, how could he possibly injure 8 people at once and come out completely unscathed himself? Do they really think that Little Knife is some kind of infinite blade that can land a critical hit with every swipe? A bunch of idiots. I rolled my neck to loosen up, grinned with my back to them. Well, this works out. It's the perfect chance to test just how strong I am now. Li Hu kept following at a steady, unhurried pace at the very back. With so many people around earlier, it wasn't the right time to make a move. He looked up and noticed that the surroundings were getting more and more remote, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Where is he? We didn't lose him, did we? Li Hu grabbed one of his lackeys and asked, "No, Tiger Bro. Fang Yuan is just up ahead. He's heading toward that abandoned construction site. There's not a soul over there. It's the perfect spot for us to take action." Li Hu let out a long breath and a satisfied grin spread across his face. The grudge from back then could finally be settled today. He had considered the possibility that Fang Yuan was deliberately luring them over, but Li Hu just didn't believe he could handle them all by himself. How could he possibly take on the dozen or so of us here? He's just a loser who only managed to get by because he had a knife. Now that he's lost his knife, what can he possibly do? Li Hu gritted his teeth. He had already checked there was no way Fang Yuan could be carrying a knife. Tiger Bro, Fang Yuan just went in. A more relaxed lackey hurried over, looking anxious. Should we make our move now? Do it, Li Hu replied with a vicious grin. Tell the brothers to stay sharp, and don't forget Brother Yang's orders. We want one of his legs. No matter who showed up today, Li Hu was determined. He was going to cripple this so-called Brother Dao once and for all. Who else in the old city would dare to be mentioned in the same breath as me? Alright, you guys go first. I'll cover the rear. Li Hu's eyes flickered as he cleared his throat. Just in case Fang Yuan has an ambush set up, it wouldn't be good if you got caught off guard. Who knows if that kid might have hidden a knife somewhere on the construction site. Li Hu did want to vent his anger, but he was also worried about a repeat of the 1-8 incident from back in the day. He'd seen what those hacked up thugs looked like afterward. It was pretty miserable, and it sure looked painful. Li Hu's face twitched. The underlings, meanwhile, were touched, thinking their boss was truly righteous, and could barely hold themselves back, eager to show off in front of their boss. Once they confirmed Fang Yuan was at the abandoned construction site, everyone charged in at Li Hu's command. Over a dozen people surged forward in a mighty rush, making for quite a striking scene. After the underlings stormed in first, they saw Fang Yuan standing with his hands in his pockets, his back to them. He stood in the middle of the empty construction site, not turning around, and slowly said, "So, you're all here." This sentence immediately made the thug's expressions turn uncertain and wary. What did he mean? Did this kid know they'd been following him all along? If he knew, why didn't he run? Could there be an ambush here? Relax, I didn't bring a knife. I seemed to guess what they were thinking and smiled. I didn't bring a knife. Standing at the entrance of the construction site, with one foot outside and ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble, Li Hu's face lit up with relief when he heard those words. He confidently pulled his foot back inside. No knife? Then what are you pretending for? Li Hu rubbed his nose, strode to the front of the group, and full of bravado, pointed at Fang Yuan's nose and cursed, "Fang Yuan, you've been way too arrogant lately. I can't stand it anymore. Today, you're going to pay the price." Li Hu's words were forceful and domineering, as imposing as could be, making the purple-haired delinquent girl look at him with starry eyes, his face full of pride. This is her man willing to cover the retreat for his underlings and also stand up for them. This is what a true hero does. Come on. I nodded knowingly, my expression unchanged. I bent down slightly and beckoned with my hand, signaling them to come at me. Li Hu's face was cold as he suddenly swung his hand downward. In the deserted, abandoned construction site, the air was filled with wails and the sound of fish landing on top. This legendary construction site had been abandoned for a long time, located in the old part of town where no one usually came, but today it was lively. I thought they'd be tougher, but it turned out this was all they had. I wasn't even warmed up yet. You're already down? With this level, you call yourselves the overlords of the old city? You should change your name to the Old City Crawlers. I stood tall, like an unsheathed blade, my expression full of regret. As it turns out, after my soul transmigrated here, I inherited everything: memories, experience, and even the physical body. Just as my master taught me in my memories, I barely had to do anything before these 10 or so thugs in front of me were all lying on the ground, not a single one able to stand. It's not that I'm showing off, it's just that I really didn't get to enjoy myself. Li Hu's face was pressed to the ground, his butt sticking up in the air. He had already passed out completely. The purple-haired delinquent girl had luckily escaped unscathed, but she was so terrified that she shrank to the side, not daring to move a muscle. On the empty construction site, the thugs were sprawled all over the place, most of them already unconscious. Occasionally, a few who were still awake couldn't help but moan in pain. Seeing this, I lost all interest. Since the purpose of my experiment had been achieved, staying here any longer would just be a waste of time. I turned and walked out of the abandoned construction site, hands in my pockets, looking relaxed and at ease, as if I hadn't just been in a fight at all. It was just as ordinary as going downstairs to buy a pack of cigarettes, nothing out of the ordinary at all. From now on, I guess no one will dare to mess with me again. Seriously, I've already wasted so much time. There's not much left before the heroine runs into trouble. I pulled my collar tighter and hurried toward the supermarket. Back at the abandoned construction site, Li Hu slowly regained consciousness to the sound of the purple-haired delinquent girl's cries. She looked around, and once she was sure that everything that had just happened was real and not a dream, her heart instantly sank to rock bottom. Fang Yuan is actually this impressive. On the second day after entering the novel, today is the day when the second female lead encounters danger. Unlike the other female leads, Chu Ying has been able to see supernatural things since she was 3 years old, and even apprenticed herself to a great master. Up to now, at 18, her spiritual communication communication skills have already reached perfection, and she has resolved quite a few supernatural incidents. Perhaps due to the price of her abilities, Chu Yuing's hair is silver white and her pupils are blood red. This kind of trait, so out of place compared to ordinary people, would be seen as freakish by most. But on Chu Yuing, it actually became a plushie is very beautiful. Her looks are so exquisite that they are flawless. As a super high school level spiritual medium who became famous at a young age, combined with her outstanding appearance, she caused quite a stir when she first entered Weiyang. Most people, when faced with such an exceptional and beautiful girl, would usually feel intimidated. But fortunately, Chu Yuing isn't arrogant at all. What's more, when she learned that her classmates wanted to explore the old school building and check out Weiyang's campus legends, she agreed right away. It's almost like a rule every high school basically has a few campus ghost stories, passed down from one class to the next like a spark. Just like the city always belongs to Weiyang, the campus legends also exist in the old school district. Everyone, stick close to me and don't fall behind. Chu Yuing kept her face tense, frowning as she surveyed the old campus, then suddenly let out a sigh of relief. I used to think that campus legends were just stories made up by upperclassmen to scare the younger students, but now it does seem a bit strange. As soon as she said this, her classmates' faces instantly turned pale. If even Sister Ying says the legends are real, we're really not sure about going in. Only then did they see Chu Yuing take a purple crystal ball out of her pocket, look down at it as if she were divining something, then raise her beautiful eyes and stare unblinkingly at the Feiqi teaching building in front of her. There might be something in there that you all want to know. Chu Yuing held the crystal ball in her hands and stepped forward, actually about to go inside. The companions who had just been scared now felt a surge of excitement when they saw the determination on Chu Yuing's face. If they could really witness a campus legend with their own eyes, it would make for some pretty impressive story enough to make them stand out among their peers. With nervous anticipation, the group followed her. Chu Yuing glanced around, and with a creak, she pushed open the door to the teaching building. Without hesitation, she took the lead and walked in first. As soon as she got close, a thick cloud of dust rushed out as the door opened, making everyone's noses twitch and sting. What's that smell? The delicate-looking boy frantically waved his hand in front of his face, finally feeling a bit of relief in his nose. It stank like rotting meat. Suddenly, the short-haired girl realized something, her body tensing up as a chill crawled down her spine. Could it be that thing? Chu Yuing sighed. Don't jump to conclusions yet. We can't be sure for now. Besides, rotting meat doesn't smell quite like this. This is more like the smell of a dead rat. Hearing this, everyone's expressions eased a little. As long as it's not a corpse, they could just about accept it. Chu, is there really something dirty here? The rookie boy swallowed hard. Are the rumors true? I heard that in the story. The senior who died was forced by her family to practice piano because they wanted her to make a lot of money. If she slacked off even a little, she'd get a severe beating. One Friday night, she was practicing in this very piano room while running a high fever, but she forgot that the teaching building gets locked at night. Since it was the weekend, all the teachers had gone home, so when she tried to call for help, there was no one around. She was literally burned to death by the fever. It said that the next day, the inside of the main entrance was covered in bloody handprints. That's also why this building was abandoned, and ever since then, the legend of Weiyang's freak has spread. Every night at midnight, the sound of the piano can be heard in the building, along with the agonized screams of the trapped senior. Now it's almost that time. Are we really going to encounter something? Everyone who has ever seen the senior with their own eyes has died, without exception. As he spoke, the delicate-looking boy's features twisted with fear. My crystal ball does show that there's something strange here, but whether it's really that senior, it's still not working very well. Chu Yuing looked at the crystal ball, pondered for a moment, and said, how about this? If you're really scared, you can go back now. The delicate-looking boy's face lit up with joy, and he looked pitifully at the short-haired girl. To be honest, she was quite timid. If it were just up to her, she wouldn't have wanted to come at all, but the one who suggested this adventure was the short-haired girl she secretly had a crush on. Wanting to have more in common with her, she steeled herself and came along. Now, hearing there was a chance to leave, the delicate-looking boy couldn't help but look at her. He hoped she would be just as scared as he was, and then they could just leave together. But no, leaving right after just coming in would be too embarrassing. They should at least go in and take a look first. With just one sentence, the short-haired girl shattered all of the boy's hopes. There was nothing he could do. She was the backbone of the group, and the one who initiated this adventure, so the others could only follow her lead. Alright then, just don't stray too far from me. Chu Yuing's face was expressionless, but deep down she secretly sighed, feeling indignant. Weren't they all so scared? Why couldn't they just leave right away? Why do they have to keep up this stubborn act? If they just left, it would save her so much trouble. The so-called ultimate high school level psychic, the mysterious beautiful girl, Chu Yuing, who became famous at a young age for solving numerous zombie and supernatural cases. These titles were all completely fake. Chu Yuing didn't understand anything about psychic abilities at all. She just happened to pick up a book on the subject by chance, and coincidentally met a famous psychic master from the Jiang family at a dinner with her elders. The master noticed Chu Yuing's interest in the supernatural and, out of respect for her elders, agreed to take her on as a nominal disciple. As for those supernatural cases she supposedly solved, they were all just acts orchestrated by Chu Yuing herself. Sometimes she would hire actors, other times she would set things up in advance, and then show up to solve the problem. Outsiders who didn't know any better were left stunned, and as her reputation grew, so did her income. Chu Yuing was an orphan. Her white hair and red eyes were inherited traits. Her parents died young, and she relied entirely on the support of her elders. That's why she desperately needed money, to pay back everything her elders had spent on her, and to save up for her future college expenses. If it weren't for the fact that directly refusing to attend the class reunion would ruin my image at school, would I really be out here playing along with them in the middle of the night? Isn't it more comfortable to just watch dramas in bed? Chu Yuing walked at the very front, her expression completely calm, but she was grumbling non-stop in her heart. Sigh. Whatever. All I have to do is turn at the next corner, and they'll see the fake blooded mannequin I set up earlier. I even put a wig on it. The lighting here is terrible, so they'll definitely think it's the senior's corpse. When that happens, these cowards will be so scared they'll run away. I'll just stay behind for a bit, then go to school as usual tomorrow. They'll definitely think I took care of everything for them, and my supernatural persona will be safe. That's right, this is the plan. Chu Yuing turned back confidently. There's something I need to tell you all in advance. If anything unexpected happens, just turn around and run and worry about me. The things here aren't something you can handle. Just leave it to me, and remember, it's very dangerous to leave Sister Xiaoying here alone. The short-haired girl blinked and said, it's probably safer if we all run together. Don't underestimate an ultimate level spirit medium. Just trust me, it'll be fine. Chu Yuing confidently raised a finger and gave it a little wave, making a wing gesture toward the others. Alright, the short-haired girl had no choice but to agree. Thinking about it, it did make sense. Sister Xiaoying was an ultimate level spirit medium. If they really did encounter a ghost, this group would only hold her back. Chu Yuing then saw the corner ahead and couldn't help but feel a surge of joy once she turned that corner. She'd see the setup she had prepared in advance. Without showing any emotion, she quickened her pace and led the group around the back. The next second, a bloody corpse was half reclining against the wall. In an instant, everyone except Chu Yuing was scared out of their wits, their minds going completely blank. Move! Listen to Chu! At this critical moment, it was actually the usually timid, delicate-looking boy who reacted first. He grabbed the short-haired girl by the wrist wrist and dragged her as he ran outside. The remaining students quickly snapped out of it as well, scattering like startled birds and beasts. Sister Sakura, be sure to stay safe. Chu Yuing curled her lips slightly, showing no reaction to her classmates' concern. Instead, she felt a bit bored. Honestly, if they'd gotten scared sooner, she wouldn't have had to waste so much time with them. Sigh, I'd better clean this place up before dawn. Every time after setting things up, just tidying up takes so much time with a hassle. Muttering to herself, Chu Yuing squatted down. She took out the wet wipe she had prepared in advance from her pocket and began wiping the fake blood on the floor. Maybe she shouldn't agree to these kinds of requests anymore. Huh, why does the blood on the floor feel kind of sticky? It doesn't seem like the fake blood she bought. That's odd. She'd bought professional-grade fake blood used by film crews in the entertainment industry, and she'd used it many times before. It was always easy to clean up, so it shouldn't be this sticky. Chu Yuing furrowed her brows. No matter how hard she wiped with the wet wipes, she just couldn't get it clean. It was as if, in just a few hours, it had completely solidified on the floor. There's no way fake blood could be this sticky. Chu Yuing suddenly realized something, and her whole body stiffened in the suburbs. Could it be, as if to confirm her suspicions? A cold wind suddenly swept in from behind, brushing past the back of her neck, icy and bone-chilling. No way, could she really have encountered a spirit? It was only her second day inside the story, and today was the day the second female lead was supposed to face danger. The girl whom everyone regarded as the ultimate high school level psychic, Chu Yuing, suddenly plopped down on the ground. In that instant, fragments of past memories surged through her mind. She remembered how, thanks to her family connections, she had met a renowned psychic master at a dinner party who had accepted her as a registered disciple and once given her a book, and he had also roughly taught her some of the most basic psychic techniques. But Chu Yuing had always thought all of that was fake, and had never seriously read that book or paid attention to what her master had taught her. She only remembered a little bit, just the surface. Come on, think, she urged herself. Try to remember what exactly master had said. She didn't know if it was just her imagination, but as the cold wind blew, Chu Yuing kept feeling as if something was steadily approaching from behind her. The footsteps were so light, almost weightless, completely silent, but her subconscious kept warning her that something really was getting closer. Chu Yuing pressed her hands to the ground. She slowly edged herself into the corner of the wall, then wrapped her arms around her head. She didn't dare look back to see if something was really approaching. Her mind was racing, and the few related memories she had left kept surfacing one after another. There really is spiritual energy in this world, but ordinary people may never see it in their entire lives, so there's no need to worry. If you believe it exists, if you don't, it doesn't. You must always have a sense of reverence, and never take it lightly. If one day you feel like you've truly encountered something, recite the incantation I taught you. Pretend you can't see the other party, and no matter how strange something seems, you must not pay attention to it. Remember, pretend you can't see it. Chu Yuing felt as if she had just awakened from a dream, softly and repeatedly murmuring, "That's right, master said. Just pretend you can't see it. Pretend you can't see it." Suddenly, she felt the cold wind around her grow stronger, making the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The wailing sound drifted past her ears, like the wind, but also like some indescribable thing whispering grievances right beside her. "I'll never pretend to be a spirit medium again. Never be some ultimate high school level spirit medium. Never deceive anyone again. Please, I'm begging you, let me go." Chu Yuing didn't dare open her eyes, silently praying in her heart, only hoping that whatever it was had just come to scare her and didn't mean her any harm. Gradually, as if her prayers had been heard, the surroundings really did fall silent, so quiet she could hear her own pounding heartbeat. It was over. Chu Yuing, trembling, squinted her eyes open, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might leap out of her throat at any moment. She didn't dare open her eyes all the way, afraid she'd see something bloody and terrifying. As her vision slowly returned, she saw that everything in front of her was empty. There was nothing there. Chu Yuing let out a sigh of relief. Supporting herself against the wall, she had just managed to stand up when she turned her head and saw the mannequin she had set up earlier, nearly screaming in fright. She'd been through too many shocks today, but thankfully her heart was still beating and she hadn't died on the spot. Annoyed, she reached out and slapped the wig off the mannequin. Using the fake moonlight, Chu Yuing slowly made her way outside. "I'll come back and tidy up tomorrow morning. I'm really sorry for making such a mess here. When I get home, I need to take a good shower. I'm never doing anything like this again." Chu Yuing pressed her lips together. Fortunately, this corner was not far from the entrance of the teaching building, and Chu Yuing could already see the door ahead. All she needed to do was push open this old door, and she could get out and go home. Then, biting her lip in frustration, Chu Yuing swore fiercely to herself, "I'll never come to this damned place again." As she spoke, her hand had already touched the door. With just a gentle push, she would see the smile she longed for so much. With escape in sight, the corners of Chu Yuing's mouth couldn't help but lift. As she put strength into her wrist, the door slowly began to open. The sense of unease grew stronger. Suddenly, the smile on her face froze the door, which she remembered as being extremely old and worn, suddenly wouldn't budge. It was stuck, and no matter how hard Chu Yuing pushed, it didn't move an inch. She was going to be trapped here, just like the upperclassmen in that urban legend, completely and utterly stuck. Tears welled up in Chu Yuing's eyes from anxiety. She wanted to cry, but was afraid that if she cried too loudly, it would attract those things. So she suppressed her sobs, whimpering softly like a kitten. "I'll never pretend to be a psychic again. Never again. I swear. I'll never pretend to be a psychic again." Just then, as Chu Yuing sat on the ground, her eyes lifeless and her heart filled with despair, a voice suddenly exploded in her ear like a bolt of lightning on a clear day. In that instant, terror surged through her, and Chu Yuing didn't even register what the voice had said. Her mind was filled with only one thought. The supernatural entity hiding here had caught up with her. A scream, so shrill it no longer sounded human, tore through the night. "No, please don't kill me. Haven't you already heard my prayers? I really won't ever do this kind of thing again. I swear a deadly oath. Please, I beg you, let me go." Chu Yuing covered her ears with both hands and lay on the ground, tears and snot streaming down her face. She didn't even dare to lift her head. Having watched the whole scene unfold from the shadows, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. Although I knew from the original novel that Chu Yuing's character was a coward, I never expected her to be this timid. My plan to scare her had only just begun. There were still so many steps left. If I kept going, this little girl might actually die from fright. That's right, after escaping from the abandoned construction site, I hurried as fast as I could and finally bought everything I needed at the supermarket. Then, ahead of Chu Yuing, I arrived at this abandoned building. I knew the fake mannequin Chu Yuing had prepared used the crew's high-quality fake blood, so I simply grabbed a few bottles of ketchup and smeared them all over it. As for the wind sound Chu Yuing heard, that was just a small portable fan I bought, which could be powered by a power bank. Low energy consumption, strong wind, super effective. The so-called ghostly presence Chu Yuing felt approaching her was actually just me, wearing silent slippers and deliberately walking a circle in front of her. If it hadn't been so dark in here, she probably would have noticed me right away. After I'd laughed enough, I slowly put away my smile and looked at Chu Yuing, who was lying on the ground, scared like a startled rabbit. For the first time, I felt a twinge of guilt, but that moment of guilt was quickly shaken off as I shook my head and put it out of my mind. I couldn't go soft on her, this girl is a real troublemaker, and there's no way she'll back down unless I put her in her place. Chu Yuying is one of the 5 female leads, a junior a year below me. In the original story, she was supposed to come to this abandoned building today and get pranked by Lee Junyang. This whole abandoned old campus area is about to be taken over by Lee Junyang's family business. As the eldest son of the Lee family, Lee Junyang came here on behalf of his father to inspect the building, preparing for future renovations. By chance, he ran into Chu Yuying, who was pretending to be a ghost in the building, and decided to play a trick on her. That's how their romantic storyline was supposed to begin. This first encounter, which left a deep impression on Lee Junyang, didn't mean much to him at the time, but to Chu Yuying, it was from this very moment that she started to fall for Lee Junyang. In the later plot, in order to help Lee Junyang achieve his dreams, even though she's got that mischievous little devil streak, she's willing to risk everything, even exposing herself to the villain. That's how much she cares, which honestly makes me roll my eyes. In the original story, Lee Junyang knew his limit. She just gave her a little scare, and didn't go nearly as far as I'm doing now with Chu Yuying. But I have my reasons. If I followed Lee Junyang's approach and held back, what if Chu Yuying ended up liking me, just like in the original plot? All I want is to ruin Lee Junyang's romantic storyline, and keep the female lead from falling for that scumbag. I have no intention of being a cuckold, so to prevent Chu Yuying from falling for me, I secretly upped the ante just a little bit. All I did was scare Chu Yuying so badly she almost peed herself, that's all. Nothing too serious, right? I think what I did was absolutely necessary. Chu Yuying has always had a bit of a masochistic streak. I noticed this when I was reading the comic. She really likes excitement, which is a lot like the suspension bridge effect. When danger is near, the fear and tension can easily be mistaken by the brain for feelings of attraction. So, whoever is by her side at that moment will make Chu Yuying subconsciously think she has feelings for them. In the original story, Lee Junyang used the suspension bridge effect to win Chu Yuying's affection. I wasn't sure even if I avoided Lee Junyang, would the suspension bridge effect still work and make Chu Yuying fall for me instead? That's why I decided to go all out. After all, there's a big difference between mild and real fear. Scaring Chu Yuying this much, she probably wouldn't be in the mood to develop feelings for me, right? To be fair, Chu Yuying really is quite pretty. Seeing that she was still lying on the ground, clearly not recovered yet, I simply squatted down in front of her. Taking advantage of the moonlight, I studied Chu Yuying's features. The thought that such a beautiful girl would end up in the hands of a scumbag in the original story made me feel it was such a waste. I took a deep breath, and a sense of resolve gradually welled up inside me. That's right, my very existence is to stop Lee Junyang, that scumbag, and prevent the heroines from repeating the same mistakes. They deserve to have wonderful lives of their own, and protecting that happiness is what it means to be a true warrior of pure love, isn't it? Alright, it's about time to wake her up. Although I don't know why Lee Junyang hasn't shown up yet. According to the original plot, he's supposed to appear here tonight. I'd better hurry and get Chu Yuying out of here. I can't give Lee Junyang any chance at all. Resolving myself, I reached out and poked Chu Yuying, but to my surprise, the girl who had been trembling nonstop in the suburbs just now showed no reaction at all. My heart skipped a beat. Did I really go too far? On the second day after entering the novel, in order to stop the second heroine from falling for the male lead, I had set things up in advance and used all sorts of props to scare Chu Yuying, but I hadn't expected to overdo it and actually frighten her into fainting. To make matters worse, the school security office had been alerted by the commotion just now, and now, in the dead of night, a boy and a girl were alone together in an abandoned school building, and one of them even fainted. What would the security guards think if they found us like this? I turned to look at Chu Yuying lying on the ground, steeled myself, quickly stepped forward and picked her up, then pulled open the door of the kitchen building and leapt outside. Without stopping, my figure quickly melted into the night. In my rush to escape, I didn't notice that Chu Yuying, cradled in my arms, had her already rosy earlobes flush and even deeper red. Come to think of it, is this girl really that clueless? Didn't she realize that the door needed to be pulled open? I muttered under my breath, stupid girl, all brawn and no brains, letting out a long drifting sigh. I didn't notice that at this moment, Chu Yuying, who was being carried, quietly covered her face, overwhelmed with shame and frustration. So that damn door actually needed to be pulled open? I never even thought of it. It's all ruined now. Completely ruined. Chu Yuying was on the verge of tears, just as I had thought. For the sake of maintaining her persona, she had gone to all sorts of creepy places, so she wouldn't have been scared into fainting on the spot. She just felt utterly humiliated. In this situation, Chu Yuying didn't even consider how to face things. Pretending to have fainted was the best option she could come up with.
Chu Yuying secretly opened her eyes a sliver to observe the strange man in front of her who had scared her so badly. Just one look was enough. Chu Yuying immediately shut her eyes again. This guy looked way too fierce. His sideswept bangs were so long they covered his eyes, and he'd even dyed them yellow. He looked exactly like a hooligan, definitely not a good person. It's over, it's all over. Falling into the hands of someone like this, there's no way anything good could happen to her. Chu Yuying's face instantly went from red to pale. Based on her deep understanding of certain people, girls as pretty as herself were exactly their type. Once they got their hands on her, what awaited her would be a hell she'd never want to remember.
Chu Yuying's face turned pale in an instant, and she instinctively wanted to run. She squinted her eyes, trying to get a sense of her surroundings, but realized that the man seemed to have already reached his destination. When she got a clear look at the buildings around her, her heart completely sank. This guy was really going to take her home. Just as Chu Yuying couldn't take it anymore and decided to make a run for it, she suddenly heard a gentle voice, sounding very much like a girl's. You're back. Yes, good evening, bro. I was just about to open the door when I happened to run into Yushiyeo, who was about to go out. She had seen the co-rental flyer I posted online. Go and see. But the place became a rental property. And just like that, by a twist of fate, he ended up as my roommate. The first time I saw him, my first impression of Yu was that he was beautiful. But considering his messy hair and the male symbol on his chat account, I just assumed he was a good-looking male roommate. At that moment, Yu paused for a second, glanced at the girl in my arms, then looked at me again. I immediately felt my hair stand on end and instinctively took a step back. Bringing a girl home in the middle of the night, and she seemed to be asleep. This had to be a case of going to a bar and losing control.
Maybe Fan Yuan took the initiative to get him drunk, just to take him home to do bad things. I said, how could someone who looks so fierce be a good person? His previous kind appearance was really fake, right? It's more complicated to explain. This person is my classmate. He experienced some unexplainable accidents and passed out. I noticed Shiyue's gaze, smiled bitterly, and shook my head. I avoided the security guard, but I couldn't avoid my roommate. roommate after all. I raised my head and signaled Yushiyue to get out of the way.
I then walked into the house, placed Chu Yuing on the sofa, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and finally felt relieved to be home. This girl looked skinny, but I didn't expect her to be so heavy. Oh right, close the door. If a neighbor saw this scene, there'd be no way to explain what you're doing or who she is. Yuiyue became even more cautious, quietly gripping the phone in her pocket with one hand, while the other rested on the doorknob. She was already prepared to dash out the door at any moment and go to the police. Didn't I already say? She's my classmate, a junior from the year below me, but I really can't tell you the details. Let's wait until she wakes up and explains herself. If you're not busy, could you help look after her? I'm going to take a shower. We'll talk when she wakes up. Yu became even more alert. Her grip on the phone loosened quietly, and she let go of her earlier suspicions about Fang Yuan. At this point, she was starting to feel uncertain. Maybe things weren't as she had imagined, and perhaps there really was more to the story. I turned and walked into the bedroom, grabbed a towel, and started undressing as I walked out. Seeing this, Yu quickly turned her head away, but then she thought to herself that she'd always drawn half-body sculptures, and had never actually seen what a real man's body looked like. This was a rare opportunity, so she secretly turned her head back for a peek, but by then I had already walked straight into the bathroom without looking back, so she had no choice but to give up. Are you okay, Xingxin? Yu left the door slightly ajar, then quietly crept over to the sofa, tapped on it instead of speaking, all the while keeping a wary eye on the bathroom. Wake up! Yu didn't dare raise her voice, so she called out urgently in a low tone. At that moment, her delicate nose wrinkled slightly in a frown. She didn't smell any alcohol, so it seemed this little girl hadn't been forced to drink. Why was there another one here? Chu Yuing secretly squinted her eyes for a glance, then closed her right eye in despair. This blonde is really something. One person wasn't enough. Did he ever consider how I'd feel? I'm still a pure unmarried girl, you know. You don't need to be afraid. I'm a girl just like you, but you have to keep this a secret from me. You can't let that blonde guy find out. Yu noticed that Chu Yuing's tightly shut eyelids seemed to twitch, and she immediately understood Chu Yuying must think she was in cahoots with Fang Yuan. Chu Yuying was momentarily stunned. Although she had heard this person's voice when she first came in, soft and gentle, very much like a girl, she had also seen the way the other was dressed, which was completely like a boy. Could it be that Fang Yuan had arranged for someone to trick her, to make her let her guard down? Just what kind of people were in this place? Not only is there a blonde guy, but now there's also a crossdresser. Seeing that Chu Yuing was still pretending to be unconscious, Yue let out a sigh. What on earth has happened to this world? Ever since I moved into this neighborhood, I felt as if I've entered a dimension completely different from reality. Is it really that hard to tell that I'm a girl? Liar? Chu Yuing finally spoke up. She squinted one eye, her lips pouting high, and mercilessly exposed her. What kind of girl looks like you? You must be in cahoots with the blonde guy, right? Trying to use the identity of a fellow woman to win my trust. You've made the wrong calculation. Chu Yuing could already hear the faint sound of running water from the bathroom, along with some terrible singing. She was certain that the blonde guy had really gone to take a shower, which meant this was her best chance to escape. What's so scary about a little sissy boy? Even if he's in cahoots with the blonde guy, do they really think a skinny, weak little sissy can keep me here? You're underestimating me. With a confident smile, the black blonde muttered to herself, then suddenly sat up and forcefully shoved Yushio with her handle in the blink of an eye. She suddenly felt a pair of small hands push against her. He really didn't have time to react, but when Chu Yuing realized what she was touching, her mind also went blank. Generally speaking, a boy's skin isn't as soft as a girl's, so a few black lines appeared clearly on Yushiyue's forehead. She never would have imagined that Chu Yuing would actually ambush her. Although Chu Yuing looked pretty cute, and being touched by her didn't really count as being groped, Yushiyue took a deep breath, gritted her teeth, and forced a smile. Instantly, 2 blushes bloomed on Chu Yuing's cheeks. He had just been too shocked, but now that he realized what had happened, his face instantly turned bright red. He lowered his head and whispered, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. So you really are a girl. Once her prejudice faded, Chu Yuing finally noticed that Yushiyue's delicate features were indeed something only a girl could possess. Every expression and smile exuded femininity, something that simply couldn't be faked. Chu Yuing felt even more ashamed, and for the first time she had the urge to find a hole to crawl into. Mistaking such a beautiful woman for a boy, if the other party didn't scold her, that was already a good temper. Forget it. You didn't do it on purpose either. Yushiyue let out a sigh. He wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, but he always felt that Chu Yuing was a bit slow-witted. If he didn't speak up soon, Chu Yuing would probably keep explaining himself for another half an hour. By the time Fang Yuan finished showering and came out, he wouldn't have any time left to ask questions. Now that the misunderstanding was cleared up, he decided to get to the point. So, tell me, why did Fang Yuan bring you back here, and how should I address you? Yushiyue secretly glanced toward the bathroom, still unable to let go of his wariness. After all, it was so late, and Fang Yuan had suddenly brought home a little girl. Anyone would be suspicious in this situation, especially since Fang Yuan looked so fierce. My name is Chu Yuyin. Who is Fang Yuan? He's the blonde guy, the one who's taking a shower right now. This place belongs to him. I'm just a tenant. Hello, I'm Yu Shiyu. Chu Yuing nodded, half understanding, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Suddenly, a thought occurred to her. If Yu Shiyu is a woman, then her earlier suspicions about Fang Yuan, the blonde guy, must have been wrong. Maybe he wasn't as bad as she'd first imagined. He probably just saw her faint and couldn't bear to leave her alone in the teaching building, so he brought her back. If that was the case, could she still tell the truth? He really needs money. Every bit of his living expenses has to be earned by himself. His daily spending isn't small, and on top of that, there are tuition fees, miscellaneous school expenses, and all sorts of odds and ends, plus the occasional outing with friends or eating out. These all require money. The identity of an ultimate level spirit medium can bring him a lot of money, but if he confesses, it would inevitably drag out everything that happened tonight. By then, Yu Shiyu would definitely find out that his identity as an ultimate level spirit medium is fake. Chu Yuyin couldn't trust that the other party wouldn't spread this news. Only she knew how much effort and energy she had put into building up the persona of an ultimate level spirit medium. If she were exposed as a fraud, all her efforts would be for nothing. Not only would all her previous efforts go up in smoke, but those bosses she had fooled before definitely wouldn't let her off the hook either. What's wrong? Seeing that Chu Yuyin wasn't speaking, her face alternating between pale and flushed, Yu Shiyu asked in confusion, her heart gradually growing uneasy. Seeing Yuyin's face suddenly look so terrible, could it be that Fang Yuan really did something to her? It's nothing really. Chu Yuyin snapped out of her thoughts, like a startled deer. She absolutely couldn't let anyone know that her spirit medium identity identity was fake after all. Only those wealthy bosses would believe in feng shui and metaphysics. Those people she had tricked were definitely not kind or innocent. Sister Yu, is there a place here where I can take a shower? I'd like to wash up first, and then we can talk about this, okay? Yu quickly came up with an excuse, looking pitifully at Yu. She had to find a quiet place to carefully think of a countermeasure. She absolutely had to make sure Huang Mao kept his mouth shut. What happened tonight must not be known by a third person. Yu is momentarily stunned, unable to follow Yu train of thought. She glanced at Feng Yuan, who was still in the bathroom, and hurriedly asked, Feng Yuan didn't do anything to you, did he?
If something did happen, don't be afraid. I can take you to the police station right now. There's still time for everything. No, that's not necessary. He didn't do anything to me. I really just want to take a shower. Yu was still a bit suspicious, but when she saw Chu Yuing's earnest and resolute expression, she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't the worst case scenario, that was good enough after all. No one wants their landlord to be that kind of person. Feng Yuan is still in the shower, but there's a small bathroom in my bedroom that you can use to take a shower. Shen Yan also had clean, unworn clothes and led Chu Yuing to the bathroom in her bedroom. Shi Yue was considerate, knowing the other might be a bit of a clean freak. She made sure the clothes were freshly unwrapped. Thank you, sis, Chu Yuing said, taking the clothes with one hand. Her face flushed as she closed the door, but as soon as she turned, Chu Yuing's expression changed. There's no way tonight's events can stay secret. I'm such a blabbermouth. By tomorrow, the whole class will probably know about our adventure in the old campus, and then the entire sophomore year will too. That blonde kid named Feng Yuan looked like he was also a student at Weiyang No. 1 High School. Otherwise, he wouldn't have shown up at the old campus at night. The security guards wouldn't have let him in. I just don't know what grade Feng Yuan is in right now. I've never seen him in the sophomore section. Since we're in different grades, as long as I can keep his mouth shut, no one will know exactly what happened. That little blonde scared me so badly I fainted by rights. He's the one who owes me an apology. Would it work if I use this as leverage to make him keep quiet? I can't think of a better idea, so it seems like this is the only way. If I had a choice, I really wouldn't want to hand leverage over to some blonde kid. You never know what weird demands he might make. Actually, my concern is justified. In the original storyline, Li Junyang used Chu Yuying's secret as a spirit medium to test her limits step by step, eventually dragging her completely into the mire. Still, this sister named Yu Shiwei really is a good person. Her concern for me doesn't feel like it's just for show. But there's no other way. For the sake of my own safety, I'm destined to deceive him. If it weren't for that damned blonde kid, I wouldn't have any leverage against me, and he wouldn't have seen me in such an embarrassing state. Chu Yuying clenched her teeth so hard it was almost audible. She even felt like killing Feng Yuan. Suddenly, the bathroom door was gently knocked on, startling Chu Yuying. Speak if the devil could, that blonde kid really have come to cause trouble for her? Who is it? Chu Yuying asked timidly, her earlier anger completely gone in her guilty conscience. It's me, Yu Shiwei replied, sounding a bit hesitant. I've already finished showering. I was planning to wait until you were done to talk to you, but I didn't expect him to come out so quickly. Could you do me a favor? Yuji, just tell me direct whatever it is. I'm willing to help. Realizing it wasn't Feng Yuan, Chu Yuying immediately breathed a sigh of relief and said with a grin, I'm a girl, so please keep this a secret for me. Feng Yuan still thinks I'm a boy, and I think it's better for me to keep living here that way. It's definitely safer to keep up the appearance of being a boy. That's no problem, I understand. Chu Yuying thought for a moment, then grinned and said, I'll call you little Yuish from now on. That should be fine, right? Thank you. You let out a sigh of relief. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have signed the contract so impulsively. Now I don't have enough money to move again. Even though sharing an apartment with Huang Mao is risky, the rent is really cheap in Li1, 500 a month for a high-end complex, close to the subway and the school. The nearby Old City district is also in the center of Zhang City. With this price and these amenities, Yue really couldn't find another place like this.
You've helped me so much, I should be the one thanking you. Chu Yuying opened the door just a crack, poked her little head out and grinned. Could you help me get a towel? Little Yue. Yue snapped out of her daze, her earlobes turning slightly red, as if someone had seen right through her thoughts. Flustered, she hurriedly turned around to look for a towel. This older sister is actually pretty cute. Chu Yuying glanced thoughtfully, the corners of her lips curling up slight line like Shihui. She actually likes gentle, slightly clumsy, but beautiful big sisters like you. I took a nice refreshing shower, and the moment I opened the door, the cool breeze made me feel instantly invigorated. I used the towel to dry my still damp hair, muttering to myself that if it weren't for bringing that little brat Hama now that there's another woman in the house, I would have just come out naked. Honestly, standing naked on the balcony to enjoy the breeze after a shower is the most comfortable thing. As for brother Yu, there's no problem, he's just a bit shy, I'm sure. As a fellow man, he'd understand my little quirks. Feng Yuan had just taken a can of drink from the fridge, and turning his head, saw Chu Yuyin in her pajamas, also drying her hair with a towel, her eyes quietly fixed on him. Even though she'd been scared like that earlier, I still felt a bit embarrassed. But what was strange was that Li Junyang hadn't shown up in the old town tonight. Could it be that my presence had already unintentionally changed the storyline? I sipped my drink, pondering this, and very naturally sat down next to Chu Yuying, who looked visibly annoyed. Noticing me sit down, Chu Yuying instantly bristled, grabbing a nearby cushion as if to throw it at me. How can you just sit down so casually? Stay away from me, Blondie. I almost choked on my drink, she snapped. Blondie? What kind of nickname is that? If I really were a Blondie, do you think you'd still be sitting here talking to me so calmly? I rolled my eyes. Turns out the character setting in the original novel was spot on. Chu Yuying is just a brat when things are safe. She's always jumping around, yelling mob at everyone, but the moment there's danger, she turns into a cowardly mess, not daring to fight back against Niren or Renwu at all. What exactly do you want? Chu Yuying eyed me warily. I glanced at her. It had taken a lot of effort to coax Yu Sue to sleep, so she hadn't come along. My identity as a spirit medium absolutely couldn't be exposed. Having one person know my secret was already enough. I couldn't let there be another. Don't worry, I'm not into little girls. I shook my head honestly. Hearing this, Chu Yuying was momentarily stunned. What kind of completely off-topic answer is that? But after her mind spun a few times and she realized what I meant, her fair cheeks instantly flushed red. Her face is too yellow. Well, to be honest, Huang Mao was also at fault. I really don't think I'm into little girls. girls. I actually prefer older women. I mean, what are you planning to do next? Chu Yuing was impressed by my train of thought. You already know my base salary. I'm not some super high-level spirit medium. The persona I created was just to make money. I know why you brought me back.
You must have some other motive. Just say Ita as long as it's not too much. I'll do whatever you ask. Chu Yuing turned her head. Her cheeks flushed a deep red, almost as if they could bleed, and she bit down hard on her silver teeth. I really had found her weak spot. If I used this to threaten her, even if my demands were a bit excessive, she'd probably still agree. What could this Huang Mao possibly ask for anyway? She'd definitely want me to do something bad. The more Chu Yuing thought about it,
Noticing that this little girl had changed the way she was asking, I couldn't help but let the corners of my mouth curl up. How could Chu Yuying possibly imagine that I'd already read the original novel in advance? Not only did I know she'd go there, I was also completely clear about Chu Yuying's background. I understood her predicament, so I never intended to expose her identity as a spirit medium. Chu Yuying's worries were unnecessary from the very beginning. But with such a cute little ghost girl, wouldn't it be a waste not to have a little fun teasing her? First of all, I didn't follow you to the old campus. It was because of my own personal matters, which I'm not at liberty to share with you. Second, you're clearly used to creepy scenes, yet you still fainted from fright because of me. Should I say you were too careless? Or is it that the famous ultimate high school spirit medium is actually more timid than a mouse? Seeing that Chu Yuying was about to lose her temper, I calmly continued, now for the third point, your worries are unnecessary. I never intended to expose you, so put away those inappropriate thoughts of yours. Chu Yuying felt her emotions rise and fall dramatically in an instant. For a moment, it seemed as if her hair was no longer white, but entirely golden. This blonde actually isn't interested in me? She actually dares to not be interested in me? No woman could tolerate such an insult. This is humiliation. Even a blonde isn't interested in me. The charm she had always been so proud of was actually worthless. What is this supposed to mean? Since you're a blonde, then just obediently do what a blonde is supposed to do. At this moment, the scene shifts to the Seattle Western Restaurant, a famous establishment owned by the Jiang family, renowned for its elegant atmosphere. Ordinary people need to make a reservation in advance to dine here. Li Junyang sat to the side, his brows slightly furrowed. Although the wine in his goblet was a vibrant, beautiful color, he had no interest in savoring it at all. She was already half an hour late. Li Junyang raised his wrist to check the time. He looked at the time on his watch and let out a long, heavy sigh. Li Junyang really hated waiting. Things had always gone smoothly for him, and no one had ever dared to make him wait. But the person he was waiting for tonight was someone he couldn't afford to offend. In fact, not only could he not afford to offend this person, even his father couldn't. The power structure of the entire Jiang family was extremely complex. With old aristocratic families and large enterprises, these belonged to the legitimate world, and there wasn't a true leader among them, as none of them would submit to the others. The underworld was similar, but with one key difference. They had a true leader, an emperor who lived in the shadows beneath the city. The legitimate world had no boss, but the underground world had Li Junyang. His family's business was in real estate, and they had only started to prosper in recent years, gradually showing signs of breaking into the Jiang family's upper echelons. But everyone in the real estate business knows that without some backing, anyone can step on you and suppress you. So the appearance of Yanba was undoubtedly a lifeline for the Li family. As the eldest son of the Li family, Li Junyang naturally wanted to establish this connection. Now that he had the chance to have a meal together, even if the other party was late, he could only force himself to wait patiently. He didn't dare leave just like that. Li Junyang scratched his head in frustration, his expression shifting between gloom and brightness. Calm down, he told himself. After all, there were still things he needed Yanba's help with. Once my Li family has firmly established itself among the upper echelons of the Jiang clan, no matter how arrogant you get, Yanba, I'll have ways to deal with you. Narrow-minded as he was, Li Junyang had already taken note of Yanba's tardiness and held a grudge over it. Suddenly, his phone rang urgently. Li Junyang took it out and saw that it was his father calling. He answered absent-mindedly. What is it? I've been calling you for ages and you're not picking up. What's going on? Li Junyang rubbed his nose. He hadn't told his father that he had secretly arranged to meet Yanba. He planned to handle things on his own and then report back to show he was capable. It's nothing major, just about that plot of land we contracted in Weiyang. Did you forget? Tonight, some of our designers want to take a look and see how exactly we should plan things out. Aren't you a student at Weiyang? You can go with them and show them the way. Li Junyang's frown deepened. He had already arranged to meet Yanba tonight, but the planning for the old campus was just as important. If he could handle this well, his influence within the Jiang clan would increase significantly. Moreover, for some reason, Li Junyang had a vague feeling that he was supposed to go to the old campus right now. He couldn't quite explain it, but the feeling was very real, as if he didn't go, he would definitely miss out on something very important. Anyway, Yanba is already so late, maybe he's even forgotten about this altogether. If I keep waiting, I'll just end up being stood up. Just as Li Junyang was pondering this, he suddenly caught a glimpse out of the corner of his eye of the owner of Seattle Cafe, who, looking extremely excited, was running past him with several waiters in tow. The owner then pushed open the door and went out to greet someone. Li Junyang was a bit puzzled who could have arrived to warrant such a grand welcome. To make the owner of Seattle Cafe this thrilled, he remembered that this person was a big shot in the Jiang family. So why did he now look like a... Driven by curiosity, Li Junyang looked outside and saw that a black sedan had somehow parked right at the entrance of Seattle Cafe. When he got a clear look at the license plate, Li Junyang's pupil suddenly contracted. Dad, find someone else, I'm busy right now. Before his father could finish speaking, Li Junyang hung up the phone, hurriedly put his phone away, and imitating the owner, put on a warm, enthusiastic smile and went out to greet the guest as well. The reason was simple. He recognized that license plate Zhongyu 88,888 in the entire Jiang family. Only that underground emperor would dare to use such a flashy plate number.